All right. Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to Badass Women in Herstory. Today we're going to talk about Tulsi Gabbard. I want to see what the hype is about. Let's see. She's an American politician and military officer serving since 2025. As the 8th Director of National Intelligence, she has held the rank of Lieutenant Colonel in the U.S. Army Reserve since 2021. Sorry, I can't do the accent, guys. It's going to be tough. Let me take this off, too. I was trying to do a character, but it's a lot of work. She's been in the news a lot lately, and I want to know what made her so... Because I think she's a badass, you know? Being so outspoken when the majority of the media and everybody wants you to say certain things, and she's like, no. So she's a former Democrat. She previously served as U.S. Representative for Hawaii's 2nd Congressional District from 2013 to 2021. She was a former Democrat. She joined the Republican Party in 2024. Gabbard was the youngest state legislator in Hawaii from 2002 to 2004. Wow. She joined the Hawaii Army National Guard in 2003 and was deployed to Iraq from 2004 to 2005, where she served as a specialist with the medical unit and received the Combat Medical Badge. So what's the Combat Medical Badge? I want to see what that is. It's an award of the U.S. Army, which was created so anybody who's engaged in combat or provide. So the Combat Medical Badge is an award of the United States Army, which was created in January 1945. Any member of the Army Medical Department at the rank of colonel or below who is assigned or attached to a ground combat arms unit or brigade or smaller size, which provides medical support during any period in which the unit was engaged in ground combat, is eligible for a Combat Medical Badge. According to the award criterion, the individual must be performing medical duties while simultaneously being engaged by the enemy. Strict adhere to this requirement and its interpretation. Wow. All right, so she has that. In 2007, my graduation year, Gabbard completed the officer training program at the Alabama Military Academy. She went to Kuwait in 2008. Damn. She went to Kuwait in 2008 as an Army military police officer. What's an Army military police officer? Is the uniformed law enforcement branch of the United States Army. Investigations are conducted by military police, investigators under the Provost Marshal General's Office, or special agents of the Department of the Army. Wow. In 2015, while also serving in Congress, Gabbard became a major with the Hawaiian Army National Guard. In 2020, she transferred to the U.S. Army Reserve and was promoted to the rank of Lieutenant Colonel in 2021. I'm sure I'm not doing it right. In 2012, Gabbard was elected to the U.S. House of Representatives from Hawaii's 2nd Congressional District. She became the first Samoan American, so she's Samoan, so she is from Hawaii, and Hindu American of U.S. Congress. Wow. Why she should have so much fandom. There should be a doll for her, you know, like a Barbie or something. Like the way that everybody loves AOC, that's how they should love Tulsi Gabbard, because this is a real American hero. Let's see. During her tenure in Congress, she served on the House Armed Services Committee, where she introduced several bills related to veteran issues. Gabbard also served on the House Foreign Affairs Committee. She supported the military campaign to defeat Islamic extremism, but opposed the U.S. intervention in the Syrian civil war. In her 4th term, Gabbard served on the HSC Subcommittee on Intelligence, which oversaw military intelligence and counterterrorism. Gabbard launched her 2020 presidential campaign, running on an anti-interventionist and populist platform, but dropped out and endorsed Joe Biden in March of 2020. Previously, she also served as vice chair of the Democratic National Committee from 2013 to 2016, but resigned to endorse Bernie Sanders for the 2016 Democratic presidential nomination. After her departure from Congress in 2021, Gabbard took stances on issues such as abortion, foreign policy, border security, and transgender rights that differed significantly from her former Democrat colleagues. She left the Democratic Party in 2022. In 2024, Gabbard endorsed Donald Trump for the president election and joined the Republican Party later that year. After Trump nominated Gabbard for DNI, her past statements on Syria and the Russian invasion of Ukraine drew scrutiny and concern. Many veterans and Republicans defended Gabbard's record, noting her military service and congressional experience. I mean, because she was in Hawaii Congress in the early 2000s. In February of 2025, she was confirmed by the Senate, becoming the highest-ranking Pacific Islander American government official in U.S. history. How many records has this woman broken? Gabbard is the youngest person to serve as DNI and the first millennial to hold the office. Early life and education. So Gabbard was born April 12th, 81, and I'm gonna butcher this. In Leloaloa, Mauputasi County on American Samoa's main island of Tuila. And she was the fourth of 5 children born to Mike Gabbard and his wife Carol Nee Porter. In 1983, when Gabbard was 2 years old, her family moved back to Hawaii, where they had lived in the late 70s. Gabbard was raised in a multicultural household. Her mother was born in Indiana and grew up in Michigan, and her father, who is of Samoan and European ancestry, was born in American Samoa and grew up in Hawaii and Florida. Gabbard's childhood in Hawaii included surfing, martial arts, yoga. She was mostly homeschooled, except for 2 years at a girls' school in the Philippines. Gabbard learned spiritual principles such as karma from the ancient Indian text Bhagavad Gita, which I have right here, ladies and gentlemen, the Bhagavad Gita. Incredible book. Read it. As a teenager, she settled into the Hindu faith. As a young adult, Gabbard worked for Stand Up for America, founded by her father in the wake of the September 11th attacks. Oh shit, my computer. Holy shit, bro. Yeah, I forgot I can't bend it back too far. There you go. Alright. She was also not everybody's perfect, okay? Now, she was against gay marriage. But let's see what she says about it. She was also associated with her father's The Alliance for Traditional Marriage and Values, an anti-gay marriage political action committee. She worked briefly as an educator for the Healthy Hawaii Coalition, which promoted protection of Hawaii's natural environment. Badass. Subsequently, she worked as a self-employed martial arts instructor. Wow. In 2002, when she was 21, Gabbard dropped out of Leeward Community College, where she had been studying television production, to run for election to the Hawaii State Legislature, and she became the youngest woman ever elected as a U.S. state representative. In 2009, Gabbard graduated from Hawaii Pacific University with a Bachelor of Science in Business Administration with a concentration in international business. All right, military service. In April of 2003, while serving in the Hawaii State Legislature, Gabbard enlisted in the Hawaii Armed National Guard. In July of 2004, she was deployed for a 12-month tour in Iraq, serving as a specialist with the Medical Company, 29th Support Battalion, 29th Infantry Brigade Combat Team of the Hawaii Army National Guard. In Iraq, Gabbard served as Logistical Support Area Anaconda, completing her tour in 2005. Now, what is a logistical support area anaconda? Okay, it doesn't say. Because of the deployment, she chose not to campaign for her re-election to the state legislature. Gabbard received a combat medical badge in 2005 for participation in combat operations under enemy hostile fire in support of Operation Iraqi Freedom 3. She has been awarded the Meritorious Service Medal from the U.S. She also received the German Armed Forces Badge for military proficiency. That's interesting. Why would they give that to her? I guess it recognized real. In March of 2007, she graduated from the Accelerated Officer Candidate School at the Alabama Military Academy at the top of her class, the first woman to ever do so. After successfully completing the officer training, Gabbard was commissioned as a second lieutenant and assigned to the 29th Infantry Brigade Special Troops Battalion, this time to serve as an Army military police officer. She was stationed in Kuwait from 2008 to 2009 as an Army military police platoon leader. She was one of the first women to enter a Kuwaiti military facility, as well as the first woman to receive an award of appreciation from the Kuwait National Guard. On October 12, 2015, she was promoted from the rank of captain to major at a ceremony at the National Memorial Cemetery of the Pacific. She continued to serve as a major in the Hawaii Army National Guard until her transfer to the 351st Civil Affairs Command, a California-based United States Army Reserve, until assigned to the United States Army Civil Affairs and Psychological Operations Command in June of 2020. Big mouthful right there. On July 4th of 2021, Gabbard was promoted to the rank of Lieutenant Colonel, while she was deployed to the Horn of Africa, working as a civil affairs officer in support of a special operations mission. Subsequently, Gabbard was given the command of the 1st Battalion, 354th Regiment, based in Tulsa, Oklahoma. As a lieutenant colonel, Gabbard has top secret security clearance. Sorry, ladies and gentlemen. All right. So her career as a Hawaii House of Representatives. In 2002, after redistricting, Gabbard won the 4-candidate Democratic primary for the 42nd District of the Hawaii House of Representatives with a plurality of 43% of the vote. Gabbard then won the general election with 60.7% of the vote, defeating Republican Alfonso Jimenez. At the age of 21, Gabbard became the youngest legislator ever elected in Hawaii's history and was at the time the youngest woman ever elected to a U.S. state legislature. In 2004, Gabbard filed for re-election, but then volunteered for Army National Guard service in Iraq. Rita Cabanilla, who filed to run against her, called on Gabbard to resign because she would not be able to represent her district from Iraq. Gabbard announced in August 2004 that she would not campaign for a second term, and Cabanilla won the Democratic primary with 58% of the vote. State law prevented the removal of Gabbard's name from the ballot. Then she was on Honolulu City Council from 2011 to 2012. After returning home from her second deployment to the Middle East in 2009, Gabbard ran for a seat on the Honolulu City Council, vacated by City Councilman Rod Tam of the 6th District, who decided to retire to run for mayor of Honolulu. In the 10-candidate nonpartisan open primary in September of 2010, Gabbard finished first with 26.8% of the vote. In the November 2nd runoff election, she defeated Cesnita Mopono with 49.5% of the vote. Gabbard introduced a measure to help food truck vendors by loosening parking restrictions. She also introduced Bill 54, a measure that authorized city workers to confiscate personal belongings stored on public property with 24 hours notice to its owner. Interesting. After overcoming opposition from the American Civil Liberties Union and Occupy Hawaii, Bill 54 passed and became City Ordinance 1129. Probably because they're trying to leave all their shit everywhere. Damn dirty hippies. Just kidding. All right, so then she went to the House of Representatives from 2013 to 21. So this is so much. She was in the 113th Congress. She got reelected, went to the 114th Congress. She introduced the Off Fossil Fuels Act in 2017, which aimed for a transition to 100% clean energy by 2035, which maybe she feels different about now. I'm not sure, just because it's almost, I don't know. It's difficult to go 100% clean energy because if you got to use batteries, right? Batteries are mined from cobalt, lithium, which is being mined by children in slave labor. So, it's not always the end all be all. So she's in Congress for a long time. Okay, I like this. In October of 2019, former Secretary of State and 2016 presidential nominee Hillary Clinton suggested that Gabbard was a Russian asset. Gabbard was defended by fellow 2020 Democratic presidential candidates Andrew Yang, Pete Buttigieg, and Bernie Sanders, who rejected Clinton's suggestion that Gabbard was a Russian asset. Trump also defended Gabbard. Initial news stories had mistakenly also reported Clinton claimed Russia was grooming Gabbard to run as a third-party candidate, who would help President Donald Trump win re-election via spoiler effect. However, Gabbard has repeatedly said she would not run as a third-party candidate in 2020 and did not do so. CNN host Van Jones, meanwhile, opined that Clinton's statement was a complete smear with no facts. Gabbard herself condemned Clinton's remarks in tweets, calling Clinton the queen of warmongers and the personification of the rot that has sickened the Democratic Party for too long. Yo, truer words that haven't been spoken in a minute. She claimed there was a campaign to destroy her reputation, orchestrated by Clinton via proxies in media and the war machine. In January of 2020, Gabbard filed a legal defamation lawsuit against Clinton over the Russian asset assertion, as indicted in the complaint, but it dropped 5 months later with her lawyer stating that legal merit was valid, but living in a post-COVID world, they would better focus their attention somewhere. Interesting. Also in October 2019, The Nation's James Carden wrote, "McCarthyism has gone mainstream as media attacked Gabbard." He saw the Clinton-Gabbard feud as part of a long campaign of vilification against critics of the Russia consensus by Clinton and her allies in the media, which very much includes certain former high-ranking members of the U.S. intelligence community. This is on Wikipedia, my ladies and gentlemen. After both the November-December 2019 debates, Saturday Night Live parodies of these debates showed Gabbard as the villain, introduced her with menacing music and flashing lights, and had her actress laughing evil and making threats. When really that should have been Hilton, right? On March 3rd, 2020, Gabbard, who is of Samoan descent, earned 2 delegates in American Samoa, making her the second woman of color after Shirley Chisholm and the first Asian American and Pacific Islander presidential candidate to earn primary delegates. The fact that she's the first woman to do all this stuff, Hillary should have just celebrated her just for the simple fact of the progression of feminism, but no, it's not about that. As of March 15th, she was one of 3 remaining candidates alongside Joe Biden and Bernie Sanders who had not suspended their campaigns. In an interview on Fox, she highlighted a Rasmussen poll showing that 49% of voters supported her inclusion in debates with Sanders and Biden, and accused the DNC and the media of attempting to shut her down. Since her campaign's inception through tactics like character assassination, media blackouts, and blocking her message from reaching the public. I'm very thirsty. Ooh, couldn't reach the water. On March 19th of 2020, she dropped out of the 2020 election and endorsed former Vice President Joe Biden. She was the only candidate with primary delegates to not be invited to the 2020 Democratic National Convention. This war veteran, this first woman to do a bunch of stuff, first Asian American woman to do a bunch of stuff, was not invited to the Democratic National Convention of 2020. The party of inclusion, the party of pro-women, did not invite the most professional woman that was available for that. You know, she had primary delegates. Anyway, post-congressional activities from 2021 to 2025. In January of 21, Gabbard launched her own podcast called This is Tulsi Gabbard. She also made several appearances on Fox News programs since leaving Congress, where she criticized figures such as House Speaker Nancy Pelosi, and U.S. Representative Adam Schiff, calling the latter a domestic terrorist for what she deems as his attempt to undermine our Constitution by trying to take away our civil liberties and rights in the aftermath of the 2021 storming of the U.S. Capitol. Okay, I'm not too up on 2021. Oh, yeah, it was 2021. Yeah, that was crazy. And the videos that came out years later that showed that they were let in, that didn't go to the news. In November of 21, she celebrated the victory of Republican candidate Glenn Youngkin in the Virginia gubernatorial election over Democratic candidate Terry McAuliffe, and tweeted, "McAuliffe's loss is a victory for all Americans. Why? Because it was a resounding rejection of efforts to divide us by race, the stripping of parental rights, and arrogant, deaf leaders. This benefits us all." In an appearance on Hannity in April of 22, she expressed support for Florida's publicly debated parental rights bill. She said that in her opinion, it did not go far enough, that it only covered grades kinder through third grade, while Gabbard believed it should have continued all the way to 12th grade. A follow-up bill in the state did just that 1 year later. In 2022, Gabbard spoke at the Conservative Political Action Conference, drawing criticism from Hawaii Democrats. All the good she did for Hawaii as a Democrat, they're going to throw all that out the window just because she went to speak at a conservative political action. I mean, we should be reaching over the aisle to work with each other, right? Party switch. It's like they pushed her. On October 11th of 2022, Gabbard announced on Twitter that she was leaving the Democratic Party, accusing his leadership of cowardly wokeness, anti-white racism, hostile to people of faith and spirituality, and dragging us closer to nuclear war. Shortly thereafter, she endorsed and campaigned for several Donald Trump-supported Republican candidates in the 22 midterm elections. Among those she endorsed were Senate candidates Don Bolduc, Adam Laxalt, and J.D. Vance, and Arizona gubernatorial candidate Carrie Lake. Following Donald Trump's entry into the 2024 Republican presidential primary, commenters suggested that he might consider Gabbard as a potential running mate. That'd be awesome, but the left wouldn't allow it. They would. On February 22nd, 2024, she was a featured speaker at CPAC, raising speculation of her candidacy as a potential vice presidential selection. During a Fox and Friends interview on March 6th, she was directly asked about serving as Trump's vice president. She responded, "I would be honored to serve our country in that way and be in a position to help President Trump." In March of 24, Trump cited her as one of his potential choices for his running mate. Interesting. On August 26th of 2024, Gabbard endorsed Trump's re-election bid during a National Guard Association gathering in Michigan. The next day, she was named as an honorary co-chair of his presidential transition team alongside Robert F. Kennedy Jr.'s, joining Trump's son and the Republican vice presidential nominee J.D. Vance. On October 22nd of 24, while speaking at a Trump rally in Greensboro, North Carolina, she announced she was joining the Republican Party. Media appearances. In August of 22, Gabbard started serving as the fill-in host for Tucker Carlson Tonight, and she continued to be a frequent guest host of the show until its cancellation of 23. In November of 2022, after years of being a frequent guest on several of their programs, she signed a deal with Fox News as a paid contributor. She currently serves as a frequent guest and occasional host on shows such as The Five, Outnumbered, Hannity, Jesse Waters Primetime, and Gutfield. All right, Director of National Intelligence. So on November 13th of 2024, President-elect Donald Trump nominated Gabbard as Director of National Intelligence, citing her military experience and leadership, which she does have a lot of. Support. Republican senators defended her nomination against Democratic criticisms, with Senator Eric Schmidt arguing that political differences do not equate to disloyalty, and Senator Mark Wayne Mullen rejecting claims that she was compromised by Russia, which was already proved. On January 27, 25, former intelligence and national security officials expressed support for Gabbard, asserting she would help depoliticize intelligence agencies. Libertarian-leaning GOP senators backed her anti-interventionist stance, and former Trump Deputy National Security Advisor Victoria Coates emphasized the need for new intelligence leadership given global events. Former CIA counterterrorism Chief Bernard Hudson praised her integrity and experience. The National Border Patrol Council and the National Sheriff's Association endorsed her for her commitment to national security. Over 250 veterans, including Representative Brian Mast and former Acting Secretary of Defense Christopher C. Miller, signed a letter supporting her nomination. Vice President J.D. Vance and the Secretary of State Mark Rubio highlighted her military and congressional experience as qualifications for the role. Opposition. Of course there's opposition. Because if nobody's hating, you're doing something wrong. Gabbard's nomination was met with controversy, of course. Media coverage was widely critical, and Democrats raised concerns about her past meeting with Syrian President Bashar al-Assad and remarks perceived as aligning with Russian narratives. Critics, including former CIA Director Leon Panetta, questioned her lack of intelligence experience and opposition to U.S. involvement in Ukraine. The New York Times noted that while Russian media had amplified Gabbard's foreign policy views, there was no evidence of collaboration with Russian intelligence, and she had opposed Russia's invasion of Ukraine. Democratic congressmen, including Debbie Wasserman Schultz, Jason Crow, Tammy Duckworth, and Elizabeth Warren, we all know Elizabeth Warren, labeled her a likely Russian asset. All bullshit. All unfounded rumors. They should be sued for libel, but this is what's going on right now. Over 100 former national security officials signed a letter opposing her nomination. Gabbard's spokesperson dismissed these concerns as politically motivated attacks. Confirmation. Gabbard testified before the Senate Select Committee on Intelligence on January 30th of 2025. She pledged to separate her political views from her official duties. Those who oppose my nomination imply that I am loyal to something or someone other than God, my own conscience, and the Constitution of the United States. Accusing me of being Trump's puppet, Putin's puppet, Assad's puppet, a guru's puppet, Modu's puppet, not recognizing the absurdity of simultaneously being the puppet of 5 different puppet masters, she said in her opening statement. She denied knowing Edward Snowden while he worked in Hawaii's NSA facility and defended her past advocacy for reforming the Espionage Act, including a House resolution she introduced with Representative Matt Gaetz. Senators repeatedly asked Gabbard to label Snowden a traitor, but she declined, citing the term's legal and political implications in a follow-up op-ed. She acknowledged Snowden had broken the law by releasing information that caused harm, though she also highlighted the exposure of illegal surveillance practices. She confirmed she would not, as DNI, advocate for Snowden's pardon or clemency. So he broke the law, but he's not a traitor because he let us know that they were illegally. But she's not going for his pardon. Senator Michael Bennet criticized her stance on Section 702 of the Foreign Intelligence Surveillance Act. Gabbard clarified her position, defending the necessity of 702 for national security while stressing the need for reforms to protect civil liberties, particularly advocating for warrants in certain U.S. person queries. Post-hearing, she committed to collaborate with the committee on reauthorizing and any additional reforms. Let's see. In response to concerns about, regarding her 2017 Syria trip with former Congressman Dennis Kucinich, she stated that he arranged the meetings and denied knowledge of extremist remarks made by Grand Mufti Ahmad Badreddin Hassoun. She clarified that her trip had been cleared by House Ethics and that she informed the Trump administration upon her return. In response to concerns about intelligence disclosures, Gabbard stated she would ensure whistleblowers had proper legal channels, including a direct hotline to the DNI. She assured Senator Todd Young that she would not protect those who disclosed classified intelligence programs improperly. Smart. She's saying, smart. Senator Susan Collins supported her nomination after Gabbard clarified her stance on Snowden and reducing the size of the DNI office. Senator James Lankford, initially concerned about the surveillance policies, also backed her after her explanations. On February 4th of 2025, the Senate Intelligence Committee advanced her nomination in a 9-8 party line vote. Senator Lisa Murkowski announced her support on February 10th of 2025, stating that while she had concerns about some of Gabbard's past positions, she appreciated her commitment to oversight and ensuring civil liberties remain protected. The Senate's confirmed her nomination on February 12th in a 52-48 vote, with only Senator Mitch McConnell among Republicans voting no. That turtle-looking piece of tenure. Gabbard was sworn in as the 8th Director of National Intelligence on February 12th, 2025 by Attorney General Pam Bondi, taking the position responsible for leading 18 U.S. intelligence agencies and assuming the role of President's top intelligence advisor. After her swearing in, Gabbard promised to focus on ensuring the safety, security, and freedom of the American people while echoing Trump's claims of politicization of the intelligence community and the need to rebuild trust. With this appointment, she became the first female military combat veteran, to serve as DNI and the first Pacific Islander American and first Hindu American to hold a cabinet level position. How in the world is that not news? How is there not books? How is there not reports in a movie? It doesn't make sense. Immediately after being sworn in, Gabbard made her first international trip as DNI to Germany to attend the Munich Security Conference. In March of 2025, Gabbard's second international trip was to Asia with a focus on the Indo-Pacific, including Japan, Thailand, and India. Before traveling to Asia, Gabbard stopped in Hawaii, which hosts the U.S. military's Indo-Pacific Command headquarters. In her visit to India, Gabbard attended the Raisina Dialogue, an annual multinational conference of security officials held in New Delhi, and outlined the Trump administration's strategy for global peace and security. Also this month, Gabbard, along with other senior members of the administration, discussed the plans for U.S. attacks in Yemen on a Signal group chat that leaked to journalist Jeffrey Goldberg. Now, this was on the news recently. When questioned by Congress, Gabbard admitted sharing the information with Goldberg was a mistake, but claimed none of the information shared was classified. Boom. After the Signal leak, reporters of Der Spiegel used online leak data to find personal information such as emails, phone numbers, and messaging accounts of several U.S. security officials, including Gabbard, who was exposed on WikiLeaks and Reddit. Gabbard's office responded that Gabbard had not used the online accounts for several years and that her data leak occurred nearly 10 years ago. But Der Spiegel reported that Gabbard's private Google account was active 2 weeks prior, and that the messages sent by Der Spiegel to Gabbard's WhatsApp and Signal accounts appeared to be successfully delivered. That means nothing. Anyway, all right, so there's domestic policy positions. Oh, she's been outspoken against a broken criminal justice system that puts people in prison for smoking marijuana while allowing pharmaceutical corporations responsible for opioid-related deaths to walk away scot-free with their coffers full. She said that as president, she would end the failed war on drugs. Man, Tulsi Gabbard for president, ladies and gentlemen. She would end the war on drugs, legalize marijuana, end cash bail, and ban private prisons. She has introduced bills she has introduced include the Ending Federal Marijuana Prohibition Act and the Marijuana Opportunity Reinvestment and Expungement Act. In January of 2020, in response to a question from a voter, Gabbard called for legalizing and regulating all drugs, citing Portugal's model for drug. I'm sure she's changed her. All drugs is kind of crazy, in my opinion. But who knows? Citing Portugal's model for drug decriminalization. In June of 2020, Gabbard introduced an amendment to the House version of 2021 NDAA to allow members of armed services to use products containing CBD and other hemp derivatives. Oh, that's good. It was approved 336 to 71 as a package, although House leaders did not fight for its inclusion in the final bill. Damn. Members of armed services to be able to, not even THC, just CBD. She's, let's see. Along with 47 other Democrats, expressed support in 2015 for increased border security and voted with Republicans for vetting of Iraqi and Syrian refugees. At that time, Gabbard also called for halting the visa waiver program after mass numbers of Syrian immigrants entered Germany until the threat of terrorist attacks was resolved. However, between 2013 and 2021, Gabbard had also expressed support for an easier path to citizenship for immigrants without legal status, increasing skilled immigration, and granting work visas to immigrants. By 22, she had said she had opened to a proposal for a border wall if experts say it is warranted. Now on the environment, she's often supported the causes of Native Americans and tribal lands, such as her support for the Standing Rock Sioux tribe against the construction of the controversial Dakota Access Pipeline in 2016, which was done by the Obama administration. That's whenever there was Native Americans out there protesting, and they were getting sprayed down by orders of the Obama administration. Wherein she co-signed a letter requesting the Obama administration to address the tribal concerns about the project. Gabbard successfully passed an amendment to the 2019 National Defense Authorization Act that would require the Department of Energy to re-examine the safety of the Runit Dome, a leaking Cold War era nuclear waste site in the Marshall Islands. She later called for fresh eyes to ensure a more independent assessment of the waste site safety. Gabbard has spoken in favor of the Green New Deal, but expressed concerns about vagueness in some proposed versions of the legislation and its inclusion of nuclear energy. She advocated her own Off Fossil Fuels for a Better Future Act, or the OFF Act, as legislation to transition the United States to renewable energy. Healthcare and GMO labeling. Gabbard supported a national healthcare program to cover uninsured as well as underinsured people and allowed supplemental but not duplicative private insurance. She has since advocated for a two-tier universal healthcare plan that she calls Single Payer Plus, loosely modeled after Australia's system and allowing for both supplementary and duplicative private insurance. I have no idea what that means. So she's okay. Let's see. She voted president when the House of Representatives voted to impeach President Trump in December 2019. So this shows that a person can change their mind. Just because you think one way doesn't mean that you can be proven wrong, that you can't be proven wrong. In 2 video messages and a press release, she cited the Federalist Papers essay number 65 and described her vote as a protest against a political zero-sum game. Gabbard introduced H.Res. 766, which would censure Trump for several of his foreign policy decisions and send a strong message to this president and future presidents that their abuses of power will not go unchecked, while leaving the question of removing Trump from office to the voters to decide. A week later, Gabbard said she had serious concerns that the impeachment would increase the likelihood that her party would lose the presidential election and its majority in the House of Representatives. LGBTQ rights. Her views on LGBTQ rights have changed over the years, as evidenced by her 2013 signing of an amicus brief supporting gay marriage while in her early years. She was associated with her father's campaign opposing gay marriage. In 1998, when she was 17, Gabbard supported her father's successful campaign to amend the Constitution of Hawaii to give lawmakers the power to reserve marriage to opposite-sex couples. She also favored the federal marriage amendment that would prevent overriding state law with regard to same-sex marriage. However, in 2012, she apologized for her anti-gay advocacy and said she would fight for the repeal of the Defense of Marriage Act. In June 13, she was an initial co-sponsor of the legislation to repeal DOMA. Gabbard was a member of the House LGBT Equality Caucus. She received ratings of 92%, 88%, 100%, and 84% of her 4 congressional terms for pro-LGBT legislation from the Human Rights Campaign, a group that advocates for LGBT rights. More pluses. After launching her presidential campaign in 2019, Gabbard apologized for her past anti-gay views and said that her views had been changed by her experience in the military with LGBTQ service members, both here at home and while deployed. After criticism from Democrats over her past anti-gay remarks, she was defended by conservative pundit Tucker Carlson, journalist Glenn Greenwald, and openly gay representative Sean Patrick Maloney. In 2020, Gabbard and Republican U.S. Representative Mark Wayne Mullen introduced a bill titled Protect Women's Sports Act that would seek to define Title IX protections on the basis of an individual's biological sex. After introducing the bill, Gabbard was condemned by activists and LGBTQ organizations, including the Human Rights Campaign, which said Gabbard has lost all credibility as an ally. Like that. 4 years. She got A+ from this group of people, from the Human Rights Campaign. She advocated for them. She passed bills for them. She does one thing that they disagree with, she's lost all credibility as an ally. In 2022, Gabbard endorsed the Florida Parental Rights in Education Act, which prohibits public schools in Florida from having classroom discussion or giving classroom instruction about sexual orientation or gender identity from kindergarten through 3rd grade, or in any manner deemed to be against state standards in all grades. She said the bill bans government and government schools from indoctrinating woke sexual values in our schools to a captive audience. She also suggests that the bill should apply to all grades. Woke has been changed. Woke has been changed to its meaning. Words, gay. Words' meanings have changed, right? And sometimes just in a matter of years, we see how woke became a great thing to woke, like, oh, that's woke, to it's like a overly panderous. All right, so I'm going to wrap up on her. She's a total badass to me. Tulsi Gabbard for president. So 2025 would be 2029. At some point, she's still very young. She was born in 81. But with all her experience and stuff. Shit. Alright. We're gonna do a freestyle. We're gonna get out of here. Thank you guys for listening and watching. Be right back.